All right, how's everyone doing? I hope you are enjoying this degrees that we have in the Midwest around the 60s, 70s. It's kind of warm outside. I'm enjoying it. So I'll be headed out in a few. Um, what I want to talk about today was this no snitching rule. Um, like I'm starting to see that the people who I went to school with, the people who, um, they're in their early 30s. Like I'm starting to see the young people, the young people who they were around. The young people are starting to look up to them as importance before say someone who is a baby boomer or someone who's surviving to be a traditionalist. They're looking up to millennials as being the person who calls the shots, if you will. um the big OG, the big unk. They're looking at them like that, right? But I was always curious to know, like, what was this no snitching rule? Like, when was that? Like, when did that really catch importance? And like, who was really pushing that movement? um I just looked at a video. I was just scrolling through my TikTok, and I saw Charleston White talking about somebody on there, and he was talking about, I don't know if it was comedy, I don't know, but I get a lot of videos from people um who are in those southern regions. You know, I get a lot of videos from them. I don't necessarily get videos from people who are in areas like Chicago. I don't really get videos from them. So I'm sitting here and I'm looking at that, and the algorithm just put me on this video, and I'm listening to it, and they're talking about in the comments, why is he snitching? Um, you know, I always thought, like, if somebody did something in the community that was going to harm the community, like, you probably needed to let somebody know that someone was harming the community. Someone was doing something in the community who shouldn't have been doing it. Um, so like I'm sitting here and I'm thinking to myself, like, all the stuff that goes on in these communities, where it's the majority of the people is people of color, right? And you got pit bull fighting, you got Rottweiler breeding, where you got women sleeping with Rottweilers. Um, you got men selling drugs. Um, you got babies being abused. You got little girls being trafficked. You got young men being molested. You got all this stuff that goes on in the black community, in the so-called people of color community, where everybody necessarily don't look alike, right? And you see this stuff happen, and it's happening over and over and over. And you start to figure, like, these politicians, they don't necessarily, you know, fit the position to tell, the people what to do, but they fit the position to make sure that stuff like that doesn't happen. Um, like, you get these white people who don't necessarily run for campaigns in your community to say, I want to represent you, but they ultimately become the person who represents you. And what you start to see is that these politicians, they never sponsor a bill or appropriate a budget that talks about taking pit bulls and Rottweilers off the street, taking stray dogs off the street, um, criminalizing anyone who has a dog that is aggressive. Um, like, you see this happen like every day, where it's just like someone just they let a dog loose in the community, and the dog ends up mauling somebody. Like, I saw a video of a young girl. She's on TikTok talking about a dog just just bit her. Like a dog, a dog, she's getting attacked by a dog. And she shows the video while she's live, and she shows the dog coming around the corner chasing her. And she had to ask a stranger to go into her backyard. You know what I mean? Like, you know how unsafe it is to walk in some of these communities? Like, you can be walking down the street and just hear a dog aggressively barking, and you don't know why this dog is barking. You just don't know. Like, no one is in front of their house. No one is in the back of the house. The dog is just barking. So you got all these people who are, owners of dogs, and like the city aren't, strengthening the ordinances. Like you can't have a dog barking after this time. You can't, like, the city doesn't care about, what's happening in the community as far as like human abuse or animal abuse. They don't care. And this is another thing, like for those like who really think like, this guy, he's going to vote for Craig, the former police chief. He's going to vote for him. What you see is this, though. When you look back during that time, and I'm specifically talking about Detroit in this instance, when you look back at the time, like, his cabinet or his administration was enforcing some of the executive orders given to by the mayor, as far as the ordinances and the regulatories. People were still, doing the same thing that you see today in some of these cities, as far as, animals being trained and animals being unkept. So I don't see how people can say, I'm going to vote for this person or I'm going to vote for this person when they don't have a track record or a resume saying that they're qualified for, hardening up the laws, painting over this brush that says, there should be no snitching rule. So look in these prisons, and in these prisons, you see like the men there, they have the latest clothes, they have the latest technology, and they're in there for criminal crime. Like they're in there for criminal obsessions. They're in there for, doing wrong to someone or doing wrong to the community. Like the thing that you see in the news now is that people are glorifying the guy who sold drugs who just got out of prison. You hear about Rick Ross, you hear about 50 Cent, you hear about Floyd Mayweather, and he's mentioned. So you hear about this thing where people are glorifying, the happening of, drugs being sold. People are happy that drugs are being sold. If someone made money off of it, and made something of themselves. Well, in that case, how could that be? How could it be that you have a person that is, 20 years old who states on a video that he knows this for a fact? He says there's no way you can get out the community, avoiding prison or, avoiding an accusation or avoiding death when you're selling drugs, when you're trying to make it out. There's no way you can make it out. So even a 20-year-old knows this. Yet you hear none of these men who are taking pictures with him saying these things. You hear none of them saying, children, don't do this, don't do that. Like Jalen Rose, right? Former Indiana Pacer, former Chicago Bull. He's, he has a school. So I know like he has to have these talks with the students, like don't go around selling hard drugs, or don't go around shooting people or anything like that. I know he has to tell the students these things. I know he has to. But you don't see like entertainers talking about the need to prevent what you would see is, these students in these schools becoming of age and finally going out into the community and, becoming something or, making a relevance in the field that they choose. Maybe they want to be a drug dealer. Maybe they want to be a gun licensor. Maybe they want to be uh, a woman abuser, or maybe they want to be a child abuser. Whatever it be, right? You don't hear, these entertainers talking about, we got to do something about preventing, this from happening if we have a voice. Like, if everybody listens to our music, our vocals over this track, maybe we need to put out positive music about this. But you don't hear about that. You don't hear about these people saying we need to prevent, children from going down this road and ending up in prison. You don't hear about it. You know what I mean? So I don't know about this no snitching rule. I just look at it like, when I was coming up, it was kind of like I didn't know what it meant, but like I always heard people in Baltimore saying, no snitching, man, no snitching, man. I always heard that. And it was weird because, like, if your family member, if this person was, hurt or harmed or something like that, you probably would want someone to mediate or intervene. And that would be looked at as, snitching in certain cases. To me, like, I just look at it, in a simple way, just stay away from, the habits that come with certain communities, where people are just, they're ignorant to the calls that they make. You know, I don't condone any type of violence. I don't condone any type of drug distribution, whether it be a pharmacy or a person who's selling bad marijuana on the street. I don't condone any of that, and I don't support it. You know, fentanyl, cocaine, I don't condone it. I don't condone, prisoners being in prison having access to the things that, the normal people out in society has, because, that's a threat to international security. Not to say state security or federal security. It's just a threat plain out. So people really got to look into this whole thing about no snitching and kind of like consider the fact that you're causing your own demise when you say things like don't snitch. You should always want someone to mediate or, stop or prevent something from happening that could, cause property taxes to hike, cause people to move or come inside the community or, frequent the community. You always want to look into stuff like that and try to prevent it. I don't agree with the no snitching rule. I think like it upsets the apricot. This is why, black people in general, or people of color, what you want to call them, brown, black, tan, whatever, they have a negative view pertaining to people who are looking at them from other countries. Africans don't necessarily associate with blacks, no matter the complexion in most cases. If you say you're American, they'll welcome you at first, but, things that start to get awkward after a while. They don't necessarily welcome, people who say they're American or who say whatever you agree with and you're in America. Like, they notice your accents, they notice who you are, and they hold you to that, whether you, respect it or not, they hold you to it. So those are the things I'm looking at right now. I'm not a person who agrees with putting, unreformed people into society who doesn't necessarily gloss over the fact that, you're carrying habits with you that could be a problem to people who are just regular, going by citizens. You know what I mean? Like, if you want to invite someone into a culture and say, yeah, you can do this or you can do that, I'll support you. Help someone, help a teenager get a loaded gun, or help a teenager sell hardcore drugs to someone. I don't support that. So look into this, man. This is an old article though, but I had to bring up the fact that this no snitching rule stuff is getting out of hand. So great peace, Yakoki.